Well, a very good evening and thank you for finding yet another time to join us on Y254 News. My name is Yvonne Anyula, and tonight, being the 14th of August 2018, we are asking how well are you conversant with the government's Big Four agenda pillars? How well are you conversant with the government's Big Four agenda pillars? 22162 is our SMS line. Please keep your SMSs coming, and we'll be eager and happy to sample some of them, of course, as they come in. Today in studio, I'm joined by two guests, Lindsay Nyawera, who is a student at Daystar University, and Maureen Mumbi, who is a student analyst. But before the discussion, let's get to look at the stories making headlines tonight. Tullow Oil plans to triple transportation of crude oil from oil fields in South Turkana to 2,000 barrels daily from January. This comes after authorities struck a deal ending a near 45-day costly blockage. Protest demanding for improved security in the vast area prone to bandit attacks and a fair share of job tenders, it is a relief to Tullow as it plans to triple its transportation of crude oil in South Turkana. This comes after authorities struck a deal ending the nearly 45-day costly blockage. Trucking of the crude to the dormant Kenya Petroleum refineries tanks in Mombasa will resume from August 22nd or 23rd. About 600 barrels per day were being transported before the impasse, short of the targeted 2,000 barrels per day under the tracking scheme. That has raised concerns at the 400,000 barrels per day targeted by the Petroleum Ministry for export under the early oil pilot scheme may take longer than anticipated. The pilot is aimed at testing the temperature at which the oil will flow and other technical aspects crucial in designing pipeline for full production by 2022. And East African Portland Cement's properties are set to be auctioned to recover 1.4 billion shillings owed to workers following the firm's failure to fully implement a collective bargaining agreement. And as Hilary Dereva reports, the Kenya Chemical and Allied Workers Union has already obtained the services of an auctioneer who will start attaching East African Portland Cement's property upon expiry of the notice.
The Kenya Chemical and Allied Workers Union KCAW has already obtained the service of an auctioneer who will start attaching EPCC property upon expiry of the notice. The auctioneer will be seeking to recover 1.4 billion shillings, which is the amount being claimed by more than 400 workers covered in the 2013 and 2015 collective bargaining agreement. The said CBA was the subject of dispute before the Labour Court and the Court of Appeal. EPCC was aggrieved that the court had directed it to increase wages for contract employees. For Y254 Business News, I'm Dereva Hilary.
And it is a blow to Nairobi residents who are set to feel the pinch as Matatu owners announced they will from September 1st increase fares by up to 30 shillings to cover additional cost. This has greatly been fueled by the attraction of 16% value-added tax on petroleum products. Nairobi motorists are set to pay a record of 130 shillings per litre of petrol, or about 17 shillings more beginning next month. This comes after Treasury imposed taxation rates to fuel, which translates to an added cost to public service vehicle operators. Treasury Principal Secretary Kamau Thuge last week confirmed that petroleum products will start attracting the tax on September 1st, in line with Kenya's promise to the International Monetary Fund 2 years ago. At prevailing prices, diesel used to power commercial vehicles such as buses and tractors will cost 119 shillings a litre after adding the tax. The increase in prices at the pump will be felt countrywide. And Kenya earnings from coffee dropped by 700 million shillings, in 10 months to July compared with the same period last year on account of low international prices. And as Hilary Dereva reports, market data from Nairobi Coffee Exchange indicates that the value of coffee has dropped from 13 billion shillings last year to 13 billion, representing a 5.2% decline.
Kenya sells more than 95% of its entire coffee to the New York Coffee Exchange, making it vulnerable to international prices. The volumes offered for sale increased to 31 million kilos during the review period from 29 million kilos in corresponding period last year. The country seeks to revive the once vibrant crop with the formation of Kenya Coffee Platform, an initiative that brings value chains players together to develop a common approach and strategy to address the issues affecting the industry in the country. Kenya is also seeking to raise the amounts of coffee roasted locally from 5% to 10% annually over the next 5 years. The main crop from the farmers, which mainly comes from central Kenya, is expected at the auction later in the year. For I254 Business News, I'm Dereva Hilary.
And did you know that artificial intelligence can diagnose eye disease as accurately as some leading experts? A study in London and the Google company found that a machine could learn to read complex eye scans and detect more than 50 eye conditions. For this and other stories, here is our technology roundup.
The machine can learn to read complex eye scans and detect more than 50 eye conditions. Doctors hope artificial intelligence could soon play a major role in helping to identify patients who need urgent treatment. They hope it will also reduce delays. A team at DeepMind, based in London, created an algorithm or mathematical set of rules to enable a computer to analyze optical coherence tomography, a high-resolution 3D scan of the back of the eye. Thousands of scans were used to train the machine how to read the scans. The artificial intelligence was then pitted against humans. The computer was asked to give a diagnosis in the case of 1,000 patients whose clinical outcomes were already known. Artificial intelligence performed as well as two of the world's leading retina specialists with an error rate of only 5.5. Crucially, the algorithm did not miss a single urgent case. Nintendo cracks down on retro games downloads Emu Paradise. An 18-year-old website offering downloads of classic computer games has voluntarily shut down following legal action by Nintendo against two similar online portals. All three offered a wide variety of old games in an unauthorized format. In its legal action, Nintendo is seeking $150,000 for each Nintendo game offered and up to $2 million for each trademark infringement. Emu Paradise said it could not risk potentially disastrous consequences. It said it intended to remain online but would be taking its sites in a new direction. The two websites named in Nintendo's legal action filed in Arizona were Love Retro and Love ROMs and were both registered to the same company, Matthias Designs. Both sites are now closed but offered games originally designed for a number of classic consoles, including those by Sega, Sony, and Atari. For Business Tuesday, I am Abdurazak Ngutia.
So, as I had said earlier, we are asking, how well are you conversant with the government's Big Four agenda pillars? How well are you conversant with the government's Big Four agenda pillars? And as I had said, our guests in studio are Lindsay Nyawira, who is a student at Daystar University, and Maureen Mumbi, who is a student analyst. Now, the president has assured that implementation of the Big Four agenda will create job opportunities for the youth. The president, while at the National Youth Day function in Kisii County, cited manufacturing sector as one of the pillars of the Big Four agenda, is expected to create more than 800,000 jobs annually. He also emphasized on his commitment to clearing obstacles hindering the youth from achieving their full potential. They outlined the measures his administration has taken to empower the youth, including construction of 70 technical and vocational education and training institutions to equip the youth with the requisite skills to secure jobs. The Big Four pillars, which include manufacturing, affordable housing, food security, and universal health coverage, have provided the blueprint to the future of the state. That there is no doubt. The question is, are the youth up to the task? And if yes, do they understand what is really required of them? Thank you so much, Maureen and Lindsay Nyawira. If you may kindly introduce yourselves for us.
Thank you so much. My name is Maureen Mumbi. Yes, I'm also a student, actually at Daystar University. And yeah, I'm doing media studies. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me on this program. My name is Lindsay Nyawera. I'm a student. I'm a fourth-year student at Daystar, and also I've been a student leader at Daystar.
Thank you so much for coming to the studio today. Do you know about the Big Four agenda? Let's start with you, Maureen.
Yes, I actually know about it, and it's actually a funny story how I got to know about it. It was earlier this year. I attended, it was like a conference at KICC, and people were talking about the Big Four agenda. So I was actually very curious, and I got to understand more about it because I've been hearing a lot about it, and but I didn't know what exactly the Big Four agenda is. So it was very informative, and I got to understand what it's really about. Yeah.
How about you, Maureen? How did you come to know
about the Big Four agenda? To start with, yes, I do know about the Big Four agenda. And I'm a very motivated, funny youth who wants to know what does the government have in store for us. So I actually attended the Jamhuri celebration, and that's when the president got to articulate about the Big Four agendas that he has to improve the economy of the country. Yes.
So in layman's language, can you give us the definition of the Big Four agenda so that someone out there, a young person out there, might be in a position to understand it right now?
Basically, the Big Four agenda is it is President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy projects that he plans to take in place before 2022. Basically, it's his strategy, what he plans to do before 2022 comes. So it's just, you know, with a leader, if you're a leader, you need to have a vision. So basically, for me, it's like his vision. Before you get to 2022, what is it that he will have achieved before we get there? Yeah, that's how I understand it.
How about you? Do you feel the same about that?
A definition. Actually, just to add on what my friend has actually talked about, so the president actually emphasized that he wants to dedicate his time, his resources, his energy in accomplishing these four agendas, because he feels that with these four agendas, the country can actually develop, and it will create employment to the youth. So for me is what the president, you know, the four main things, key things that the president sees that if he implements and makes sure they're accomplished, then the country will develop by 2022. Yes.
So which are these Big Four agendas? I've not had any one of you talk about them, the manufacturing, affordable housing. Kindly let us know the Big Four agendas.
So you want us to explain?
Just break it down for someone out there.
Oh, okay. I can break down two of them, then my colleague can break down the other two.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I can break down, there are four actually. There's, as you had mentioned earlier, there's manufacturing, there's food security, there's health, and there's housing. So in terms of manufacturing, the Big Four agenda tries to ensure that there is quality products, especially when it comes to the export and the import market. And not only that, but to make sure that the consumer, which is you and I, is protected from different things. For instance, we are facing an issue about sugar. This is something that has been really trending in our TVs and everywhere else. But you know, the funny thing is we wouldn't really be talking about this particular issue if we would have looked at it earlier. So this is actually something that is affecting the manufacturing sector. Also, the other issue, the other pillar is on there's housing, food security, health. I can also mention on health. He plans on, according to, I was reading the draft policy for 2018, and he mentioned something on ensuring that every citizen here in Kenya has access to proper medical services. You know, health is a very vital issue here in Kenya, and if everyone is safe and if everyone has enough medical attention, especially our mothers who in the maternity wards and other areas, if anyone has that, then we are secure as a country. So yeah, that's how I understood it.
Maureen.
Okay, so I will take over the two pillars. I will start with affordable housing. you find that these days people struggle. People struggle to pay rent, but the president actually articulated very clearly and said that he will work hand in hand with the private sector to make sure that the middle class people, the low income people can actually afford houses. How will he do this? By ensuring that, yes, you can buy a house and deposit. The deposit is a bit lower and prolong actually the years of pay. And also, he also made a promise of establishing 1 million houses to actually cater for the people who can't afford affordable housing. The other one is food security. You see that the country is growing, and we need food. Actually, I think without food, then all these pillars are useless, because without food, that means that the nation is not active. You know, you don't have energy to produce, and you need that energy to produce. So he came up with some of ideas of how he's going to actually ensure that we have food, constant supply, and food is available, and actually healthy food to sustain this economy. And through this, he came up with some of ideas, for example, having to implement things like land consolidation. This is discouraging land subdivision, whereby you have land consolidation, whereby you have a large piece of land, and this will encourage large-scale farming. And this large-scale farming will be able, you can be able to produce a lot of food for people. Another thing is helping our farmers. Some of the reasons why the farmers are suffering is because maybe they're not being supported with fertilizers. The cost of production is very expensive. The storage facilities, a lot of food is getting spoiled in the granaries and stuff like that. If we can come up with technologies to actually store that food, then we can actually curb this situation, you see. Another idea is for food is probably come up with ways in which we can. You see, there's some land policies. You find that there's so much land that is lying idle in Nakuru, in Nandi, all these places. How about we have land policies act that encourage people to actually farm on that land? Yes.
So, Maureen, let's talk about manufacturing. Yeah. Do you think that the youth, especially in this country, will be willing to take up manufacturing, bearing in mind, or to involve themselves in manufacturing, bearing in mind it's not a white-collar job?
Yes, I think they can. For instance, I actually even have a friend who has ventured in farming. Nowadays, it's not like the time we used to have, like farming was meant for someone else. Nowadays, the youth have actually become very active in these particular sectors. You find that someone comes up with a small business. A friend of mine does, what is it called? Hoho. In English, it's called, basically, hoho, tomatoes. She does that kind of agricultural sort of business. So what she does, she delivers these things, and it's actually a small business. And actually, this is actually contributing to the growth of this economy. It might contribute as a very small percentage, but it's a plus. So I think we are more open. We are not closed-minded the way we used to be right now. Nowadays, we have realized our true potential, and we're not just waiting and sitting around to be given jobs and being told, come, this is a job, go work. We are actually going to look for the jobs ourselves.
Would you involve yourself in manufacturing in the first place, in the achievement of the Big Four agenda?
Yes, I think I can. Maybe in terms of textile, I think I can maybe learn something, a few things here and then, maybe venture in it. Why not?
Okay, let's get
why not?
to hear what Lindsay is thinking about that.
Okay, what I know, I'm a youth, and I know one of the problems we have is having jobs that's hand to mouth. You get your salary, you pay, then you have nothing left. So how about we have these industries? We encourage these investments. That means a better Kenya. That means a better income. I'm telling you, I can even go work there. I will lift those. Metals, I lift them, so long as you're giving me, a good salary, that can cater for my needs.
So according to you, Lindsay, it's only the platform that the youth have not been given. It's not that they are not willing to involve themselves with these activities.
what I'd say is we have one very major problem, which is corruption. You find that we as a community, we've taken in corruption, and it's like a normal thing. Such that,
which is not.
Yes, such that for you, if you know the who is who, you're able to get it.
Yeah.
And what happens to that common Wanjiko or Maura who does not have these leads? You see, you will not go for this, because you know, for you to see this person, you need some facilitation fee. So I feel that if we can be able, if these opportunities can be given to all of us, and then the corruption, we actually kill corruption, people would go for these things.
So finally, as we wrap up, let's as we conclude this talk, rather, how can young people incorporate themselves in the big 4 pillars of the government in order to positively contribute to the achievement of the big 4 agendas, basically, and contribute positively to the economy?
I think as a youth, first of all, we need to be that voice. As she had mentioned earlier, corruption has become a very rampant issue here in Kenya. And if we sit down and see that person, for instance, money sometimes it's allocated to different organizations or institutions rather, and this money, it's given, but the circulation doesn't get to the right person who has actually earned that particular money. So if we just sit down and look at these people doing these things and not saying stop corruption, then we cannot do anything. So first of all, as the youth, we need to be that voice to tell this corruption so that we can stop corruption. Second, we can venture into small businesses, as I had mentioned earlier. You know, these small businesses can actually contribute a very huge amount to the growth of this economy. Because if I start a small business and become creative, with time, I will actually grow my business, and it will contribute positively to the economic growth of this country. Yes, that's what I think.
Lindsay, your final word, actually.
So I'd urge all the youth to actually walk the talk. You see, we have to remove all this negativity, and we have to move forward, because be the change you want to see in this world. For example, now the government is giving opportunities to the youth, for example. So if you're creative enough, trust me, you can get an opportunity out there. Why are we still importing things like plastics? Don't we, you know, these minds that we have, can't you just come up with something creative? Go get the jobs. Now I can tell you, people are actually investing. You see, the president is actually implementing what he said. You see, but you see, some of the youth are not in the know. They don't even know about the big 4 agenda. So you need to, you see, the government will not chew these things for you. You need to get out there, get out of the cocoon and get these things and get this information and fight for it. And like my friend said, also fight corruption.
So thank you so much for coming through. At least you've shed some light for the young people that are out there and do not know anything about the big 4 agenda. Thank you so much for coming through. As we had mentioned earlier, 22162 is a SMS line. 22162 is a SMS line. Begin with the word Y News. And you can also find us on Twitter at Yvonne Anula, at Y254 channel. The hashtag is Y254 updates. You can still be part of this conversation by simply sending a text. Now, as we move on, Kenya cannot export milk and palm oil to Zambia because Zambia feels Kenyan milk is not fit for consumption. And as Miriam Masava reports, this is among the non-tariff barriers which remain the greatest challenge for COMESA member states. Take a look.
The Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, says it has so far managed to resolve 199 of the non-tariff barriers, but still have 5 unresolved, 2 of which affect Kenya. However, non-tariff barriers still remain the greatest challenge to trade across African countries. COMESA Secretary General Chilese Mpundu Kapwepwe said there are also a number of sensitive products which member countries will not prefer to have tariffs removed, hampering the process to smooth harmonization of trade laws. Kenya is among the affected countries by not being able to export palm oil and milk to Zambia. The 22 countries are on a 2-day meeting as part of the effort to give guidance and coordinate regional and national custom procedures and specifically custom-related issues. Meanwhile, Postbank Kenya has rolled out mobile banking service targeting small saving groups. The service, dubbed M-Chama, will allow users to access loans at a touch of a button. The service is expected to make banking experience easier for individuals with group savings will not be required to physically visit the bank's branches or ATMs to transact their group's business. With close to 2,500 groups registered and expect to recruit 3,500 groups by the end of the year, M-Chama is the latest addition to the bank's mobile and internet services. Finally, drama ensued at a market in Limuru town after unhappy traders defied an order to relocate to a modern structure that had been constructed by the county government. The traders claimed that the government failed to honor its promise to construct a market big enough to accommodate them all and are now forced to squeeze into a small space. Miriam Masava, Y254 Weekly Roundup.
Thank you so much for being part of this bulletin tonight. Let me see you next time on Tuesday as we discuss our other topic. I now leave you with the Nairobi security exchange rates as well as foreign exchange rates. Do have yourselves a great night ahead.